He told me, but.
On. Okay, it's 7:06. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Scott, if you could do the roll call, please.
Commissioner Penny,
Here.
Commissioner Curry,
Here.
Commissioner Danio,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Villa.
Here.
At this time, if you would silence any equipment that you might have that might make any noise, I will go ahead and lead us in an invocation, if you'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear gracious God, we thank you for another day. We thank you for the ability to meet freely and discuss the business of the city of Holly Hill. We were reminded last week that our time on earth is limited. One of our teammates, Dave Manning, passed away suddenly. Could we please have a few seconds of silence in his memory? Please comfort his family, all of his friends, his co-workers that mourn his passing. Please protect and comfort all those that are dealing with COVID-19. Please protect all those that protect and serve our nation, our state, our country, and our city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So you'll notice that there's only 3 of us sitting here in person, and 5 of us are attending the meeting. So I'm going to let Commissioner Curry and Mayor Villa explain where they are. So I'll turn it over to you first, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Once again, this is my second meeting, obviously attending virtually, and I hear that Commissioner Curry is also attending, and Commissioner Curry, you'll hear tonight that it's sometimes hard to hear some people. So I know I apologize. I'm sure she will if we miss some things or ask them to be repeated. But we just ask everybody to speak loudly. That would be very appreciated. And I'm sorry that I can't be there. As many of you probably heard, my test for COVID-19 did come back, and it came back positive. The good news is I haven't had symptoms in almost about 2 weeks, and my doctor thinks at this point by now that I'm no longer contagious, but I just felt that out of an abundance of caution that I should stay out at least this last meeting here. So I definitely intend to be attending at the next meeting, but my family's doing great, I'm doing great, and we appreciate all the thoughts and prayers. And at the end of the meeting, I'll talk about an initiative that I took up along with the other 15 other mayors and the county chairman to help out with the slow testing times here in Volusia County. But for tonight, this is why I'm not here, and I appreciate the opportunity, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Curry?
Thank you. Basically, I'm in Maryland visiting my dad and stepmom, and this is a trip I take every year, but thankfully through the governor signing that order to where we can do this virtually or telephone. So this helped out this year that I wouldn't have to skip a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to item 2, which is our presentation. This is a proclamation honoring Michael James Junker for 35 years of service to the city of Holly Hill. And I'll be honored to read that tonight. A resolution of the city of Holly Hill, Florida, recognizing Michael James Junker for his 35 years of service to the city of Holly Hill and its citizens. Whereas Michael James Junker began his career with the city of Holly Hill on May 23, 1985, as a temporary maintenance worker number 1 in the Public Works Department. And whereas Michael became a permanent employee as a refuse collector on August 15, 1985. And whereas Michael applied and was promoted to the wastewater plant operator trainee on November 3rd, 1988. And whereas Michael was assigned as acting chief wastewater operator in October 3rd, 1991, and was required to acquire a B license within 6 months of receiving his temporary assignment, and was able to complete the task and become the chief wastewater plant operator on December 3rd, 1991. And whereas Michael was able to acquire the rating of C operator within that time period when the wastewater plant got upgraded to an A plant. And whereas Michael has maintained his position from December 3rd, 1991 until his retirement date of July 30th, 2020 as the chief wastewater plant operator. And whereas Michael has proven to be a dependable employee, dedicated worker, and will be leaving a legacy of extraordinary contributions to the city under his leadership as the wastewater plant. A few major plant improvements were accomplished, such as 2002, refurbishment of the sand filters, 2004, replacement of the reclaimed water reuse system control panel, 2008 to 2009, major upgrade of the facility, including replacement of equalization pumps, return pumps, recycle pumps, replacements on BTU drives, construction of the number 3 clarifier, installation of the disc filters, electrical upgrades to the MCC number 3, and upgrades to the SCADA system. 2011 was the lining of the collection system piping, along with replacement and refurbishment of the city lift stations at 2 stations per year. 2015, refurbishment of the sludge belt filter presses. 2016, replacement of the plant facility's main electrical switchgear. 2020, remote monitoring of all the city's lift stations and conversion of the SCADA system. And whereas Michael has been an asset to the city and the wastewater staff, he empowered his staff to make decisions and guided them through the decision-making process. He developed a succession plan for wastewater chief plant operator and has been developing their skills to have a seamless transition after he retires. Public Works believes that the city is in a better shape since and after Michael James Junker has left his position and left a positive imprint on the wastewater plant. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, hereby acknowledges its grateful appreciation of Michael James Junker for his 35 years of outstanding service and dedication to the City of Holly Hill, and wish him well in his retirement and through his future endeavors. Signed by Mayor Chris Villa.
Vice Mayor, I would call him Junk. I've known him for a long time, and he's not here this evening. He had a last-minute conflict. Antoine will, I don't think it's signed yet.
It is signed.
Oh, he did sign it.
He signed
Great.
it.
Antoine will go ahead and take that back. Thursday is Junk's last day. I've been around a long time. I've known Junk for nearly 30 years. He's been here 35 years. I've been here almost 30. And he's one of the first guys that I knew when I was working in the fire department, and really a guy that came up from the bottom, made good, was a loyal employee, never a problem, did the right thing, trained his staff. He has trained people for succession planning, and he's got his replacement already in place and on staff already. So he's just an all-around nice guy, a quiet guy, and he's done real good for the city. We're going to miss him. Yeah, I think he deserves to go off into his retirement being proud of the work that he did here for the city of Holly Hill. I wish I was here to tell him to his face, but I'll be over there this week to tell him myself.
Is the city going to do a luncheon for him or anything, or do he not want that?
No, we typically don't do that, and
Okay.
I don't think he would show up if we did.
Okay.
Buy him a Sicilian pizza. That's his favorite. He likes a Sicilian.
Okay, well, thank you. Now it's time, item 3, public comments. Now is the time for the audience to address the commission on anything not on our regular agenda. Anyone want to address the commission at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. We'll move on to item 5, which is the consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda, but the action proposed is stated for each item on the consent agenda. Unless the city commissioner removes an item from the consent agenda, no discussion on individual items will occur, and a single motion will approve all items. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on any item on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Second. Second.
I'm sorry, you guys aren't here. Commissioner Curry or Mayor Villa, would you like to discuss the consent agenda?
I'm good.
No, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, I'm sorry, any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move to item 6, which is our regular agenda, Resolution 2020-R-35.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, amending the City of Holly Hill's purchasing policy, which was approved in Resolution 2018 R30, providing for legislative findings and intent, repealing all resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for authority to the city manager for implementing administrative actions, and providing for Scrivener's errors, conflicts, severability, and providing an effective date. Stella will give you a brief update as to why we're making this modification to our purchasing policy.
Good evening, Stella Grenay, Finance Director. The Police Department has been awarded the 2020 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding, and one of the requirements of this grant, and actually it's a requirement now for any federal grants, is that the city have adhere to 2 CFR 200-313, which are the federal guidelines for acquisition and property control of equipment. So by amending our purchasing policy, we can cover the criteria for this grant, which we already do track the equipment in the manner that they're talking about, but we needed to specifically say that we would follow those guidelines, so that this is amending the purchasing policy to include that.
Any questions of Stella? Anyone on the? Any questions on the phone?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Anyone from the audience like to comment on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close audience participation and entertain a motion for approval.
Motion.
Second.
I'm not sure who made the motion. Commissioner Danio?
We made it together.
We'll give it to Commissioner Danio, and I heard Commissioner Curry make a second on the phone. Any discussion needed? Any discussion needed? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Now we'll go to regular agenda number 2, maximum millage rate, fiscal year 2020-2021.
Okay, in conjunction with the notice of proposed property tax to trim notice pursuant to Section 200.069 of the Florida statutes, the City Commission must authorize advertisement of the maximum millage rate for the upcoming budget year. The current operating millage rate is 6.25 per thousand of assessed taxable value. The current taxable value is $707,177,324. With the proposed rate, preliminary ad valorem tax rate for fiscal year 2021 would be $4,198,865 at 95% collection. The current year rollback millage rate is 5.9014 per thousand assessed value. With the current rollback rate, the preliminary ad valorem taxes for the fiscal year 2021 would be $3,964,670 at a 95% collection. The City Commission must establish a public hearing dates within 35 days of the tax certification received from the property appraiser for the fiscal year that ends September 30th, 2020. This evening, what we're looking for is a motion from the Commission to set the maximum millage rate and establish those public hearing dates. There is a motion in the agenda item that if you select a maximum millage rate, I'll go ahead and read the motion if somebody could move on that, and we'll take discussion at that point.
Okay, I'm going to open up to audience participation before we entertain a motion. Anyone in the audience like to discuss this issue? Seeing none, we'll close audience participation. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for.
Well, no, don't.
Wait. We have to have a number.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
If you give me the number, I'll,
6.25 millage rate.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
well, no, you don't have it. You don't have a motion or a second yet. Let me read the motion.
Okay.
And now that we have a number, then if Commissioner Curry would like to move it, we can go from there.
Okay,
So the motion would be for the City Commission to authorize the Holly Hill operating maximum millage rate of 6.25 and to be advertised as part of the 2020 trim notice and establish the budget hearing dates for the fiscal year 2021 on September 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m. and on September 21st, 2020 at 7 p.m.
did you hear that, Commissioner Curry?
Yes, and that would be my motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion needed amongst the commission? Hearing none. Yeah, okay.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Sorry. I just want to make this clear because I've stewed on what Mr. Forte said to us in the budget workshop, and to make our intentions known. And so my intent is to see the rate lower. I want to be clear on that, Mr. Forte. Can we get there? I'm not quite sure yet, but since you did ask to make our intentions fully known, that is where I am, and I know I'm in the minority with that. But so in respect to that, I'm going to be voting no.
Okay, so, Mr. Mayor, you may not be in the minority in that, but we discussed in the budget workshop earlier not to just pick an arbitrary millage rate, that we would like some guidance to give staff what you would like to remove from the proposed budget so they could get to a lower millage rate.
Right, and that's why I'm not throwing out an arbitrary number.
So what would you like staff to look at to cut to get to some number?
Well, in my discussions with Joe, we'll go over that, but also I got to go through the budget even more. So, like as I said, I just started to delve in, but I was fully prepared to vote yes tonight for a maximum, meaning to work to get lower. But Mr. Forte also asked us to be fully fair and show our intentions, and that is my intention. So that's just the reason for my vote tonight, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Okay, just to be clear, the vote is to just set the maximum tonight, and we are going to have
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Mr. Vice Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
that is exactly what this is. It's a 6.25% maximum.
Correct.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think any of us are not intending to lower the mill. I mean, this is kind of a rerun, but we've got to give staff something to go on, so.
Any further discussion?
Did my motion go through? Did we get a second?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Danio made a second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. So we're going to go ahead and call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The motion carries 4-1. Now we'll move to item 7, public hearings, ordinance 2020-0-3029.
Ordinance, this is an ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, amending land development regulations by rezoning a parcel described in Exhibit A from CC1 Commercial Corridor District to BPUD Business Planned Unit Development, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This is first reading.
Mr. Walker.
Good evening, Commissioners. As you know, the city owns a parcel of property at 224 Riverside Drive, and that particular parcel is zoned CC1, Commercial Corridor. It also has a general future land use of general commercial. And the CC1 zoning designation is very broad. It allows a big range of uses, anything from a bookstore to light industrial to manufacturing. And staff has received inquiries from potential buyers of the property. Many of these inquiries center on uses on the property such as motorcycle repair or other things that are really not compatible with the trend of development in the area. As you know, the property sits directly in front of Marina Grand, which is a luxury condominium association. It's not far from the market, about 350 feet south. So that particular development contains one of our city's finest dining restaurants. It also sits in the city's redevelopment district. So because of this, some thought was given to whether or not the property should be rezoned. I took the item to the BOPA on May 4th, 2020, talked about the issue, and in the end, BOPA recommended that the property be rezoned to a PD in order to allow the city to more specifically choose what uses it would want on the property. And that's the purpose of the rezone before you this evening. Per section 114-7714, when you are requesting to rezone to a planned unit development, there are two things that are required. One is a preliminary plan, and the other is a development agreement. These both together make up a development plan or a master development plan. The preliminary plan shows things such as the location of your buildings, your open space, your parking, and things of that nature, while the written development agreement spells out the uses of the property, legalities, and things of that nature. Because this property is for sale, we don't currently have a preliminary plan. We don't have a development proposal. So the primary purpose of this item this evening is to establish really the uses, what uses will be permitted on the property. Staff does request that once the property is purchased and the development is proposed, that the site plan serve as the preliminary plan and that would then be incorporated into the master development plan, but it would come in as a minor amendment and not be something that would have to come back to BOPA and to the City Commission. That is actually discussed in more detail in item 10 of the development agreement. Another thing to keep in mind is that because we don't have a potential buyer, the city doesn't have someone to enter into an agreement with at this point. So in speaking with our council, it was suggested that when we sell the property, the actual written development agreement at that time would be executed by the potential buyer. So at this point, it's the actual recording and executing of the written development agreement would not happen until there was a potential buyer for the property. So I just wanted to make you
So
aware.
Brian, when we look at the agenda item, there's permitted uses, which is B, prohibited principal uses, which is C. There's, 26 permitted and 10 prohibited. Since we don't,
Let's see if Scott can pull that up on the overhead.
it's page 3 of 15, it's page 254 of the agenda. 254, 255. But my question is, since we don't have a potential buyer, and I'm looking at the prohibited, and most of those you would agree with, that probably don't fit in the area. However, I've just had a thought, try to plan for what if. Have you seen those used car lots that are like vending machines? on side of I-4 that go up 100 feet in the air and you put your money in and the crane takes it and takes it down, right?
Right.
That would be pretty cool right there, I think. I mean, probably never going to happen, but if a potential buyer, and our real estate agent is in the back, if we had a potential buyer that wanted to put that type of used or new automobile, it's on our prohibited list, but because it's a PUD, can we then amend the PUD to make it a permitted use?
It's always a
Because this isn't final. These prohibited uses, as I understand it, are not final because we don't really have a buyer. So if a buyer came and said, I'm going to build you the world's first-class tattoo parlor that is visited by every celebrity from around the world, you might want that in that area.
right.
So I just don't want to sell ourselves short that because it's on the prohibited list, because we don't have a buyer, we can still change it. Is that correct?
It
You-
it would be a rezoning.
It would be a.
You have to go through the whole entire process again?
Correct. Now, what you could do is if you wanted to tailor it, if you wanted to say that that particular type of car dealership would be allowed on that property, then we can do that. We can tailor the language to say that it would, that there's a I don't know the
I mean,
name.
I just made, that was just a crazy idea.
I
That'll
think the
probably
point
never.
is that we don't know what we're putting in for language until something crazy and
The whole reason I love the PUD is that we can make the zoning tailor fit, and a potential buyer comes to us and says they are going to build
where's the list of prohibited?
a coffee shop. They're going to build a coffee shop there because that's permitted. So, but we as a PUD, we can put design standards on that, and they tell us what they're going to build, and it's going to be brown with white trim, and there's going to be 17 holly bushes in the front. And if they don't do that, they don't get the certificate of occupancy and they don't open.
Right.
But I just don't want to sell ourselves short. I don't think anyone, and maybe I'm just thinking of something that will never happen. I just don't want to have to go through this entire, is there any way to leave it open so we don't have to go through this entire process again if our realtor finds us a great buyer?
Which item is it? that
Well,
you-
it's-
I don't know that it's any,
not.
I don't know that it's any of them. I mean, let's just say a bar or a nightclub were to go there and there's Hard Rock comes to town and
Too
wants to
small.
put, I know, I'm being,
The point is, what if?
Well, I'll give you the other side of the devil's advocate. What if you get a bar? What if you get a bikini bar? What if you get a used car dealership? So what we're trying to do is,
but we don't have to agree to sell it to them as
you
the
don't have to
owner.
agree to sell it to them, but, you may be in a position where you don't know.
They buy it, and then they
The
decide.
sale is not contingent upon an agreed-upon PUD. The sale is first instituted with this understanding, then a PUD is agreed upon. So,
Joe, you got to talk into them. They can't hear you on the phone.
yeah, first comes the sale, and you have a willing buyer and a willing seller that says, I will enter into a PUD with the terms and conditions set forth in your proposal here. It doesn't go the other way around. So if somebody comes in and you have
Okay,
bar,
but let's just say the guys that own the pawn shop in Vegas, that whatever, and they want to buy a pawn shop, and they buy it with the rules we have here. They could always then come in and rezone it, right? And then ask us to change this.
you got to go through this all over again.
I know. They would have to go, but I understand what you're saying, but I just.
What we're trying to do is get the message to our realtor and to the buying public to say, if you want to buy this property, these are the categories the city is willing to consider. And we wanted to keep it a little bit more narrow because of that particular area of the city where we're trying to encourage more of an entertainment district and a higher use, that if you leave it more broad and somebody comes in and says, all right, I want the bar or I want the automotive sales, you can't limit it. You can't go back and say, well, now we have a PUD and we're gonna hold you back from that.
Well, I guess here's my question. What if what if someone comes in and wants to buy that property, and their business, I don't know what the business is not either on the permitted or the prohibited use?
They can't do it.
If it's not on either, they can't
Is
do
it
it.
a- is
If
it-
it's not on the permitted, they can't do it.
Right, it is a permissive ordinance, so it has to be included. Just because it's absent doesn't mean it is or it isn't. If it's not specifically listed as permitted, it could not be there.
Okay.
Now, it leaves room for interpretation of what is permitted. So, for example, and I can't see all of the permitted uses,
Go back the other way, Scott. There you go.
you know, all right, so you have a brewery on the, oh, that's a bad one to use. A lot of those uses up there are broad, you know, business services, that's a pretty broad category. General office use, we could fit a lot of things into some of these categories. And they're a little bit more broader interpretations of what is approved than the restricted uses. Those are very specific because somebody can interpret that as being something less desirable that we want to see on that area.
Right, I guess like, to play devil's advocate, number 20, medical and dental clinics,
Okay?
marijuana dispensary.
You couldn't object to it today even if you wanted to.
If I,
You cannot limit, you cannot, if you go back to what we did with medical marijuana, you could not prohibit it from an area where it would typically be zoned.
Any place that allows a prescription pharmacy has to allow medical marijuana, and a prescription pharmacy is a permitted use on this list. So we would allow a
I
medical
know, that's my point,
marijuana
should we take
dispensary.
prescription pharmacies off of there? That's,
No, because our experience has been these medical marijuana dispensaries are perfectly legitimate, clean operations, not problematic,
no, I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying you're gonna have a perception from the community. I,
We have one already on Nova, and it's,
Yeah, you talk about across from Marina Grande.
I think we're worrying about something. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, you can finish and not.
No, I just think I'm reading more into it than I probably should. Whenever we make these changes, I always try to figure out what's the worst thing that we just did to ourselves because
Right,
we've opened the door.
can I ask what exactly we're changing if this is already set in place?
Well, here's what happened. We've got this small parcel of land that the city acquired some years ago with an intended purpose for an expanded retention pond that didn't work out, and now we're trying to sell it. So it has limitations based on its size. It's a small parcel. By the time you put on a building and you take into account parking and stormwater and landscaping, it's small. It's a very small parcel. So you've got limited types of businesses that'll fit on there for popularity. It's just not, there's not a lot of room for expansion, a lot of room for customer base, so to speak. So you've got a limited number of types of businesses that'll be there. So what we had been approached with was automotive and motorcycle repair shops. And although the particular motorcycle repair shop that did approach us runs a very clean business, the next one may not. And we want to try to limit what we foresee has been historically problematic businesses that would, let's say, not necessarily improve the area. And that's what we're trying to do, is find businesses that would more improve the area.
But didn't we already do this?
No. What we did is we denied the request to purchase because as the owner of the property, we can deny a purchase. As the governing body of the business, we can't limit the use unless we change the zoning of it.
Got it. Okay.
the PD is also allowing things that generally would not be allowed now within the CC1 zoning designation. For example, it's allowing a 4-story or 40 feet, whereas 30 feet would be the limit where it is now. So it's kind of a give and take. They're having less uses that might be considered undesirable uses in terms of their location, but they're also getting the ability to
More
go
flexibility.
higher.
So in the several years that we've tried to sell it, and more recently when we listed it with MARTA to try to market it for us, we've gotten limited response for it. We haven't got a lot of offers on it, and In some cases, it was because the city was unsure of the buyer. We've had people that said they want to buy it and hold it, and we don't know what they want to hold it for. I have a resident of the Marina Grande that wants to buy it and hold it. Well, I don't want somebody to buy it and hold it, and then they decide they're going to put something in there that we would have said, nah, we really don't think we should have put that there. Well, it's too late. So by putting this in place, it's going to limit our concern of what the type of business is that's going to go in there.
Does Marta have any?
Yeah, we're going to call her up in a minute.
Okay.
One use that I don't see that as a permitted use, I see that we will be allowing elevated boat storage.
I saw that too.
But I don't see, one of the intended uses that I've heard of that kind of makes sense to me would be outdoor or possible indoor storage for the condominium unit owners across the street. They have limited parking. Some of them might want to store boats there. I don't know if that fits in with the philosophy of this commission, but they also may need a mini warehouse type, like an all-aboard storage type thing that I've seen done very professionally. And if we allowed that type of use, could we then use the PUD tool to hold them to design standards that were acceptable to the city commission and the community?
You can. There are already 4 listed design standards in the written agreement. So if they follow one of those, the chances are that it will be something that will look nice. But this is the time that if you have a specific use and you'd like some specific terms associated with it, this would be the time to get it into the written agreement.
I just think that use makes sense, being with the proximity of the condos across the street with the limited storage that they have. Makes sense to me unless someone can tell me why we wouldn't want to have it.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting there. Now's the time to do it, where you'll make a motion to say, I want to include mini warehouses. And if there's support between now and the next reading, we'll include mini warehouses.
Okay.
If you want to exclude something, you do it by motion, and we'll add it in or take it out.
Okay.
Just keep in mind, we don't allow many warehouses now in our corridor without going through a special exception. So this, and 2 years ago, they weren't allowed at all.
Right.
This isn't
So-
in our corridor though, is it?
It's in the
No.
CC1.
It isn't, it
carries
is in our
that zoning.
CRA. But many warehouses was considered something that not long ago, we didn't want in our CRA. And then we liberalized the rules to say, well, if you want to come and do it as a special exception, so that this particular property, that's part of the reasoning and why it was left off, because it wasn't viewed as really something as being across from Marina Grande that we might want to have. But this is just a proposal to the commission now at first reading, presented to BOPA. BOPA had several uses that they thought should be taken off. They have some uses that they thought should be included. And so those are also presented in the staff report as far as their recommendation. But now's the time to get those things in.
Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I think one of the key power that we have over what can and cannot be put here starts and ends with our ability to pick who we want to sell this property to based on their intentions. Now, I know what Mr. Forte is saying, so let's say now we sell it and then it switches hands again. I think that's why we need those prohibited uses in there for certain prohibited things. And so let me just throw a few things out there. Originally, Mr. Vice Mayor, the mini warehouses was on one of my lists to actually not include as a thing, because I looked at it differently than you're looking at it, John. I looked at it as maybe not so high scale of little storage facilities, but the way that you explained it would be beneficial to the city, would be beneficial to the residents of that area, and so actually I have no problem including the allowed purpose of many warehouses. And the reason why is because, like you said, we have the control over seeing what the design standards will be, so we can dictate what that will look like, regardless of after we don't own the property anymore. So that's the first thing. A couple other things. On the prohibited uses, Brian and I spoke today. We spoke about every item on here, and one of the things I wanted to add to prohibited uses is, and this can either be a separate prohibited use or it can be an extension to number 6, which is gas station. In our CC1 code, it is explained gas station and convenience stores, and so I would like that to be reflected there, because a convenience store is a gas station without a gas pump, and I don't think that fits the intention of what we're doing there. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about possibly allowing, and I want to see how the commission feels, is boat sales, new boat sales. Not necessarily, and by the way, let me back up before I go there. Number 21 and number 22 of the permitted uses is new automobile sales, and 22 is new recreational vehicles, including boat sales. I could see how or why we may not want dirt bikes and recreational vehicles being sold there, but I think that new boat sales, so I would suggest that we take out number 21 and take out number 22, but then add in new boat sales into a permitted use, because I don't see, I see that as a good fit for that area.
So you're suggesting we eliminate new auto sales and new recreational vehicle sales?
Yes.
Is that even possible, Brian? With the amount of, like Joe was saying about the restrictions with the amount of space, is that even possible?
A lot of these things are going to be, at the boutique level, if you will.
Not going to be practical. If you look at our two boat sale companies, you have
That's what I'm
Aloha
saying.
Marine and Blue Water Marine, and they have a lot of property. Now, you might have an offshoot of a company that might have 3 or 4 boats to sell as
Right.
models, and then you'd order a boat, kind of thing, but you're not.
With all the buffer restrictions, requirements and everything
Yeah.
else, I mean, you're gonna end up, with,
Right.
More of a showroom type thing, as Mr. Forte said, kind of a boutique thing. We have these
I wouldn't
high-end.
eliminate it for that reason.
no, I was just wondering if it's possible, would somebody sink that kind of money into, to have, a matchbox-sized building and everything to go with it?
They'd have to be very expensive cars. Or boats or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the BOPA meeting, they made a suggestion to remove elevated boat storage, new automobile sales, new recreational vehicle sales, and veterinarian clinics. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes, sir. With the veterinarian clinics, they were concerned about animals making noise during the evenings, like barking dogs and things of that nature.
Which, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, but if I could, this is something I spoke at length with Mr. Walker today. I would like to see veterinarian centers kept in there. I think that it would be a good place for it, and I don't think there would be too much external noise. Just to throw that in there. Sorry if I'm out of order.
No, we're very flexible. However, I would disagree with you, Mr. Mayor, about the new automobile sales and new recreation sales. Anything that you can buy new in a city, I think, is added value. I don't know that you can buy a new car in our city.
Well said. Well said. You changed me on that.
I know
I'm flexible on that point too.
Well,
So-
with the new owners of Blue Water Marine, they have $300,000 brand new boats in there. And the people, if someone were to relocate a similar business right across from Marina Grande, those are the people that can buy those boats and buy those
Cars.
electric cars, with the Teslas. Let's say they put a Tesla dealership.
Tesla.
It's not going to happen, but let's just say it did. That's where they're gonna put it. They're gonna put it right by the people that
Hey,
can buy
never say never. I hear we have the world's best real estate agent in the room. So
Yeah. And then what about those, the jet ski place that was right up the street? That's a recreational vehicle, isn't it, to some extent?
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a possibility too, right?
You know,
It's not,
Okay, so let's just try to get some traction here, because we're going around like cats.
let me tell you a little quick story.
All right, listen to Joe. Listen to Uncle Joe.
When I was a young child suffering from some form of hypochondriac, my mother used to tell me every time I had an ailment, don't think of zebras, think of horses. Meaning, think the more
No,
likely, the more,
It is when you hear hoof print,
when you hear hoof prints, think of
horses.
horses, not zebras, in terms of medical. So in this scenario, do the same thing. When you hear hoof prints, when you're deciding what kind of business you want in there, think horses, not zebras. Go with what's more likely than going to happen than very far-fetched than what's going to happen. Because we're spending a lot of time on what-ifs that I don't think are coming down the pike. I don't even think we hear the hoof prints. But
Okay, so let me get back to page 22 here. So I guess what we should do is, let's look at the permitted uses. I would like to add mini storage facilities, and possibly outdoor storage. I don't, if you have a boat or a camper or an RV, there is a demand for that type of storage too. And I think if we had a design standard, we could make it really first class. So,
We don't have a design standard.
yeah.
it's a PUD, can't we, isn't that the whole negotiation?
We'd have to put together some design standards in terms of maybe some renderings and some things that would have to be similar to, and could bring that back to you at second reading.
The idea of the outdoor elevated boat storage was my idea that Brian introduced to the BOPA. And the idea behind it is if you had elevated storage and somebody had one of those heavy-duty forklifts, they could bring a boat right across the street, drop it down 3rd Street and put it in the water. It's not for RVs and campers and U-Hauls and that kind of outdoor storage. It was more of an enclosed elevated boat storage, but only because of the proximity of the water.
Okay. So, is there,
And they didn't want that, the BOPA, correct?
they didn't want it,
No, they didn't.
And remind me why they said that?
it's your idea.
My idea.
I think that they were imagining something more like just a steel structure,
Right.
that boats would just be put into slots.
But so do we have design standards for that type of permitted use?
The only design standard that we have,
Steel structures.
it would be hard to make it fit into one of the 4 categories, but maybe through some design work, they would be able to jazz it up. But they wouldn't really be able to just go and do kind of an erector set. They had these, erector set when I was a kid, and you just put the thing together and it just was these steel beams. They would have to do it in the style of one of the 4 categories that are listed. And it would be up to them to come up with that. If they couldn't come up with it, if a developer said, I can't come up with something and meet these design standards, then we wouldn't let them develop it.
Okay. So, I guess what I'm gonna do is, I've asked to add the storage facility, to the permitted use. I would also like to remove farmers markets from the prohibited and allow farmers markets in the permitted. I don't think there'd be anything terrible about having a neighborhood farmers market across the street from a condominium.
There's no structure.
Well, they're gonna have to build a structure. But those are my 2 suggestions. I'm gonna open it up. I'll ask Mr. Mayor, would you like to add anything else to
Yes.
permitted use?
To permitted use, I agree with adding the mini warehouse or storage, but I want clarification on the wording that we should use from Brian. I think it's clear what we're looking for. We're looking for more of the the high quality looking, storage facility, not something that's outside with a garage door that, doesn't look very nice. Is there, do you know what we're saying? Is it mini warehouse or is it storage facility?
Vice Mayor.
Yes, hold on one second, Commissioner Curry. Hold on.
Well, there's many warehouses on here, number 22.
I don't see it.
22, no, you're looking at the CC1.
Oh, is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the development agreement on 224, there's a list
Right.
of 29 permitted
Okay.
uses.
Yeah, page,
But that's essentially, I think, what we're trying to add here to the permitted use.
Scott, could you roll it up just a little bit?
page 254 in your agenda packet.
Thank you.
You know, what you can also do, which is something that was done with 1200 Center or Fountainhead, and that is, we have these design standards that say that it needs to be done in the city's architecture standard of Mediterranean, Spanish, Florida vernacular, or contemporary styles. And these were taken from our CRA master plan. What you can say is that when the actual property or you have a rendering of the building that a developer wants to put there, that it has to come back to the commission just to be looked at and approved, so that in your opinion, it's meeting one of these standards.
Right, when I read those standards, it's very, very vague as to what those standards are.
Great.
Right. Now, we do have within the CRA master plan, we have examples, and that's something that actually Fountainhead did as well, is there were the examples of what these things meant. But that is something, if it would give you a level of security to say, okay, we want to actually see what's proposed to be there. And then staff wouldn't bring it to you unless it was something that staff felt met the
Didn't.
standard,
Okay.
and then bring it to the commission.
I think that would make me feel better.
Okay, and then we just need to figure out the wording, though, whether it needs to be mini warehousing or if it needs to be storage.
Right, Brian will bring that back to us at second reading.
Storage
I would
facility.
say
Okay, perfect.
personal
And then,
storage.
Mr. Vice Mayor, let me just add one more thing, because I'm in agreement with what you're saying, but let me also add on the prohibited uses to the gas station, just add the word "and convenience stores" to prohibited
Yeah.
after gas station.
I had that one written down. Thank you.
Is that not?
Okay,
that's
thank
not
you.
already on there?
No, it just says gas station, Joe. Doesn't say convenience store. Commissioner Curry, do you have anything to add to the permitted or add to the prohibited list?
No, the things I've heard are good so far, but thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson, anything to add to either list?
No, I don't have too much to add. I just think sometimes it's a little bit ridiculous that if somebody has a property anywhere anymore, unless they're out in the middle of nowhere, they can't hardly do anything with it. It's theirs. It's not really theirs. It belongs to the community, the city, and whatever. They can regulate everything they do. But maybe the city should just rent it out rather than sell it. And that way you can say, you're only allowed to do this much to it or that much to it.
Cities don't make good landlords. We've been through that with the marketplace.
That's true.
But, I mean, it's a good idea to do that because there's so many things you couldn't do anyway in that area because,
It's like having a chain
well, it is.
or a franchise.
Right across from Marina Grand. I think they should have a beauty parlor there and let it go with that.
Well, that's the other thing, it's a good point, Commissioner, that you made, is that Marina Grand is also struggling with filling the businesses right in front of them
Right.
with things like beauty parlors and coffee shops and whatnot. So this property is somewhat in competition with them, and they're struggling to fill their hole as well.
But I think for what you spend on build out at Marina Grand, you could build your own building and own it instead of being a tenant. That would be the way I would look at it. Commissioner Daniel, anything to add to either list?
No, I'd be interested to hear what Marta has to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull her up. One thing, I want to get back to farmer's market, because I didn't really get a warm feeling either way. But if we look at item 28, which is an allowable use, specialty grocery stores, I know we want to have a building there, so maybe we could say specialty grocery stores allowing outdoor sales. Would that allow them to have an outdoor farmer's market there? Or would we have to list farmer's market?
I think I hear hoof prints.
We had a person that wanted to have a fish store with live fish in it at one time, so.
Where?
At the old Denny's building. They wanted to bring in a produce store there and have live, it was a Chinese market. They wanted to have live fish in these ponds, and you went, got your rutabagas and your live fish at the same time. So, I don't know. Rather than going through this whole process again, and, you know, maybe I'll do that in my retirement. I'll start a farmer's market down there on Riverside Drive.
Maybe.
But I don't know.
Live fish, right.
We have one at City Hall in Ormond.
I don't know how anyone feels about that. Any ups, downs, heartburn, either way.
I think the perception of a farmer's market is not going to go over well.
There's a difference between a flea market and a farmer's market.
We've had six.
I think we had a farmer's market there, it didn't go
I've
down.
got 6 farmers market that have all failed.
Right,
Okay, I'm hearing crickets, so I'm gonna
yeah, I was going to say,
let us experts shut up and bring the real expert up.
There you go.
If you would please come forward and let us know if we're missing
Right.
anything here, Marta. Do we need to add anything to either list? That would make it easier for you to sell this property.
we should have done that half an hour ago.
Marta Pascal, 440 Pendry Drive, Port Orange, Florida. Realtor with the Adams Cameron and Company Realtors right now, and the privilege of working for the city of Holly Hill. You all are the experts in your city. You are the ones who know your city and know the needs of your cities. And
Are you running for office?
no, I just, I know what I believe. I commend you for being very careful about what you want across from Marina Grande. Obviously, Marina Grande is a true gem. And, the first time I turned into it, I thought, oh my goodness, am I in South Florida? It's amazing. Personally, I can think of uses, and I haven't studied this, so this is just me and my real estate background, my previous career, and just my thoughts. But things that I think Marina Grande residents would appreciate. I think they would appreciate mini storage. I think they would appreciate boat storage. I do think they would appreciate, let me look here, like a farmer's market. I think they would appreciate that, and I think they would support that. A coffee shop or a breakfast place, I think they would support that and appreciate that. So, there are things that I think Marina Grande would like and could support. The issue at hand is it's a small piece of property, and so that does limit the marketability of it. And issues like stormwater drainage and all those things that you know much better than I do obviously need to be taken into consideration. There has been interest, and it's kind of slowed down because the property is not actively on the market right now, for one thing, pending this discussion and this issue. But I have received phone calls about someone who did want to hold it for an investment. Well, was that real? Did he really just want to hang on to it until the economy turned around a bit more? But then what? What was he going to do with it? Was he going to sell it? Was he going to develop it? What was he going to do? Some real genuine interest was a quadruplex, but it was determined that piece of property just is not large enough to support what is needed to put a quadruplex in. You heard the story about the motorcycle repair shop. Once again, realistically, is it big enough? I mean, I guess it could work, but you heard the issues around that too. Okay, they're quality, they're clean, but what if they sell it? Something that is on the forefront right now, at least for me, is a gentleman who lives out of state who has ties to the community, and he is thinking of something that is container-based. And that is something that was brought up with BOPA. I was here at that meeting, and the discussion around that was interesting. So it's a container-based building that he's kind of thrown around in his head. That's not his only idea, but that is one of his ideas. And if you Google that or do any research in that, some of them are really interesting. And I will tell you that personally, I support the idea for this reason. It's different. And if Holly Hill is interested, and I know you are, in enhancing your image, which you are doing with Marina Grande, with Pictona, which, by the way, is amazing, and I'm going to be a sponsor of it. And it's not just pickleball, as you all well know, it's so much more. So all the things you've done, the boat launch and this and that, everything that you're doing to enhance the image of Holly Hill, for me, something like a quality container-based building would be a novelty. And that would be a draw. And let's go see what it looks like. Now, again, the size of the lot is limiting. And what would the uses be? Office space down below, apartment above, virtual school. That's obviously a big deal right now, right? Virtual concerts. I mean, there are any number of things where you wouldn't need a huge parking lot. Now, something else that's been going on is the property next door is, or at least was, for sale. And so there's been some movement toward, one owner purchasing both of the properties and then doing something with 224 Riverside Drive in conjunction with the property next door. That owner decided to back off for a while. COVID-19 did that to a lot of things. So there is interest. And narrowing down, refining the allowable uses and the prohibited uses, I think, is a good step in that direction. You want to protect your city. You want to protect that piece of property. And but we also want to sell it and have more of a profit base for the city. So I will do anything I can. And while I'm here, I just have to tell you, the city had 5 residential pieces of property as well, 1 on Sunset, 1 on May, and 3 in Riviera Estates. I think we finally have them sold. The 2 final ones are in Riviera Estates. I have 2 solid contracts right now. Thank you, the city manager, for signing them today. And I'm 100% certain that these are going to close. So I'm really excited about that. It's not bringing you a lot of revenue, but I think it might be lessening your headache a little bit. Mm-hmm. So any questions for me?
I have a question, Marty. You mentioned something about a breakfast joint. Isn't there a new place just opened right next door?
You know what? These masks are killing me. Please say it again.
Oh, you mentioned earlier about the welcoming a breakfast. Isn't there one that just opened next door? We wouldn't want to put a breakfast place next to a breakfast place.
No, I'm just saying, again, some of the interest that has come forward, well, I'm thinking about this or I'm thinking about that. Obviously, a serious buyer has to do more than just a little brainstorming. A serious buyer has to decide, what is the use? What do I want to do? Present not just the monetary figure, but the use with a rendering and all those things that are going to protect the city and what it is you're striving to accomplish.
A restaurant is an allowable use already on the list.
Yeah, it's a coffee shop, number 12.
Yeah, I just hate to see one next to the other because then
Right,
I end up with
agreed.
2 empty buildings instead of having an empty piece of land. And,
Agreed. Agreed.
Complimentary restaurant, something is,
Right.
it's.
Well, and again, I'm throwing that out there. That hasn't been a really hot buyer saying, this is really what I want to do with that property. That's just one of those things that has come forward as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Anyone on the phone have any questions?
No, I don't.
Mr. Mayor, any questions?
No, just thank you so much, Marta, for the great work you're doing. You said it when you began that this is going to be a tough property to sell, and so I commend you on getting so much activity already. And I hope that we're not up here trying to limit you, but we're protecting our investment as a city, as you explained. And I hope that us being able to narrow down our vision now that you've heard it is going to help you in your job as well, so you can weed through those right away as well. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and that's why I wanted to attend the BOPA meeting, and that's why I wanted to attend tonight. And anytime it's on the agenda, I intend to be here. The discussion is extremely helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see here. So, what I heard was that we were in agreement to add convenience store to the prohibited use. We were in agreement to add mini warehouse to the permitted use. I didn't hear any clear qualifications. We have elevated boat storage, but I also just heard that boat storage or outdoor storage might be an allowed use that would benefit Marina Grande. Does anyone have any problem striking the word elevated from boat storage?
Would that be?
I don't have a problem.
What were you gonna say, Joe?
Is that outdoor boat storage or enclosed? Because if it's outdoor boat storage, it's going to look like a used boat lot.
I agree, unless we made them put a 12-foot wall around the place. I don't know.
Still a boat lot.
And I just want to say that this may not need to be said, but we also, I think, need to make sure that we do have a building of value there just for tax purposes. That's at least my opinion. But we can decide that when we go ahead and sell the building. If they're saying we just want outside, storage and they're not going to build this or that, then we can decide that. But just want to make sure that's clear since we're talking about it.
When we sell what building?
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we could allow any occupancy without a building. For example, the farmer's market that I alluded to, we couldn't just have people show up with picnic tables and have a farmer's market. There would have to be a primary building there, and then the outdoor use would have to be a secondary.
An extension of it or something.
Brian, is there a minimum size building? I mean, can somebody put up a 10 by 10 office and that be it, and then do outside storage or sales?
If that's something that you write into the PD agreement, but that would be something you'd have
Can he come up to the mic?
They can't hear you, Brian.
Yeah, so the question is, what is the minimum size
Sorry, Brian.
structure that should be on the property? And you might have to dictate that in your decision-making.
You may want to say, if you want to say that there's a farmer's market and that no permanent structure is required, you can do that. Oftentimes people do with farmer's market bring temporary type
We don't wanna do that.
structures, and then the rest of the week it's vacant. I wouldn't suggest that,
No.
in my opinion.
Right.
But if you want to say that there's a building and you want to establish a minimum size, you can do that.
Well, what would happen if someone were to build a specialty grocery store there and want to sell product outdoors? Would that be allowed?
If you were to put it in the agreement, then yes.
Because that might kill two birds with one stone. You're going to have a building there, it's a grocery store, but every Thursday morning between 7 a.m. and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a farmer comes and parks his truck there and sells his stuff in your parking lot.
So what you could say is
It's like-
that you're going to have a specialty grocery store, and that you are going to allow some outdoor display and sales of product that might be something that you also sell inside.
Well, we went through months of the word new that came about. So unless we're outdoors selling new produce or new
Pretty much all
items,
produce is new.
I think it's new. You don't
are
want to
we
sell
gonna-
moldy produce.
I'm just saying, are we gonna end up kind of handcuffing ourselves with
What's the
things
difference?
outside? I mean,
That was just on the main corridor. So
oh, so that doesn't
LPGA
apply.
and, right, that only pertained to LPGA.
And CRA.
and US 1. There are other roads that are in the CRA, State, Carswell, they're within the community redevelopment area, but they're not bound by those same regulations.
So Mr. Johnson just brought up a good idea that probably no one else heard but me. What's the difference between a grocery store and a convenience store?
I mean, if you allow them to have a special grocery store, they'll turn it into a convenience store. What do you do for send code enforcement to enforce those?
Oftentimes, specialty grocery stores are considered niche grocery stores. So they may sell a product that is more limited than a general grocery store. For instance, they may sell only organic foods, or they may sell foods that come from a particular area of the world. So those would be specialty grocery stores. Your run-of-the-mill convenience store is someplace that somebody and anybody just might pull in, grab some alcohol, get some cigarettes, and grab a loaf of bread. Not the same type of, in a specialty grocery store, they may not sell alcohol or cigarettes or anything like that at all.
Like health food store or something to that
Health food
effect?
stores, those are all convenience. They do sell food products, but they're,
Lucky's tried that and they went out of business, didn't they, or something?
Yeah, but that was a big place. This place, you're talking about a small property. That's,
I think a lot of these uses are gonna be limited by the size of the property.
and then again, we
Well,
have,
it's-
we have to pick a size building as well.
If you want.
the property itself is about 20,000 square feet. Typically, when you have your retention, and the property, keep in mind, is almost 100% flood prone. So they're gonna be-
Let's do this. I'm giving up on farmer's market, because it's gonna take away from what the mayor said, which is our purpose of having a building, a standalone building. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that one off the flagpole and give up. So right now, I see that we're all in agreement, mini warehouses. Not so warm on boat storage, so we're gonna take that one off. We're gonna let it stand as it's stated, elevated boat storage. And we're gonna add convenience store to the prohibited use. So we're adding one additional use and adding one more prohibited use. Did anyone else have anything?
I'll make that motion.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to go ahead as you just stated exactly.
Do we have a second?
Can I get some clarification? What would you like to do with regard to the container development shown in Exhibit B? That's a very specific building, so are you approving that?
Okay, hold on one second. Brian's asking for
Of course, get
clarification.
him. Come on.
So,
I'm sorry, I thought I was muted.
that's okay. As I understood it, Brian, that, and correct me if I'm wrong, sounds like you have to correct me. The container project is more of a construction project, and we're talking about uses. So if we knew what the use was, and then, let's say the guy wants to put in the best mini warehouse in the country, but it's gonna be constructed from, containers. That's a whole separate issue. I think,
That goes under, you're right, that goes under the construction style of.
right,
Florida
so we
vernacular.
would have to amend our construction style. As I understand, we don't allow container construction in the city presently. Is that correct?
Well, you would if you approved this. This is,
But why would we approve it only on this property, right? If we're gonna do containers and we're gonna set the city of Holly Hill on the front page,
right.
we would wanna do it more than just on one little piece of property.
Well, this was something that was brought to staff by our Realtor, Ms. Pasquale, and she has a client who is interested in doing a high-end container office-type development. So it was
But there
asked that
again,
we...
the office would be the, list would be the permitted use, the container would be the style.
And couldn't we
Right,
take
they're
it-
two different things.
Right, so that's what we're trying to
You're thinking of
say.
the container, don't think uses, this is a completely different thing. This was something that he brought forth, it was suggested that we take it to BOPA, We took it to BOPA.
But we don't need to put that into tonight's motion because we would consider that at a further
It's
meeting.
not- It's not part of one of your construction styles.
Yeah, but we would be able to determine that if it came to it in the future.
No.
Wouldn't we be able to,
They're not permitted now.
and we wouldn't have the flexibility or authority to change that?
With a major amendment, you would. It would be a major amendment. And this is very specific. It's only the specific container that's listed in Exhibit B.
Can you show me that, Brian?
In Exhibit B, it's in the.
What page is it?
I don't have the entire.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, wouldn't this portion be more of the PUD approval?
It would, but we don't have that construction type as one of our construction types now. Okay. No,
Okay, so we need to add that in, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, if the mayor would like to amend his motion to include the mini storage containers, or however that's worded, storage units, I'll second that.
Yeah, they stack them. I mean, they make apartments out of them. I've seen them in Mexico. They're incredible.
I take it the mayor doesn't want to amend his motion, or did he not hear me?
No, I'm sorry. I was just waiting for them to discuss. I'm not necessarily against it as it's proposed. My only, and I talked to Mr. Walker about this earlier today. Here's my my reservation with the container. Apparently, there's talk of this business to be virtual business office space, which I'm perfectly fine with, to host potential concerts worldwide from there and have bands come in. The problem that I see with it is I think that we have to look long term, and most businesses that want to come in probably will not want to go into a container building. And so just looking downstream, if it's not a viable business that doesn't take hold, then we'll be left with a container business that may be extremely hard to heat or cool down. And then we may just have an empty building, a big container right across the street from one of our most nice places here in Holly Hill. So that's my reservation with it. I'm more than happy to look at this business and look more deeply into it. But at this point right now, I'm just not so sure that I want to include it. So I'm really debating this back and forth whether we include this or not as a potential item. And maybe, we include it and we look at the offer and we say no to it. We don't necessarily have to say yes to it.
Yeah, but there again, we don't know.
Well, I've seen container construction more aesthetically pleasing than the example I have here. This tends to look like a man cave shed in someone's backyard. It's not skinned with styrofoam or skinned with stucco. We allow a similar type of construction in our city where they put the cut concrete block on the first level, and then they put a metal building on the second layer, which is similar to the Ace Hardware on US 1. This looks a lower quality to me. So I'm open to container construction in the future in our city, but I would want to see a better shot at it than this. It just doesn't look. If I lived in Marina Grande, I don't really see the difference between looking at this and looking at a trailer in the trailer park.
Vice Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with you, but I have seen various cities and different states where the container construction is very nicely done. And that would be more of what I'm talking about.
Oh, I concur 100%, but I don't know that we need to rush container through on this item. I think container should be a topic for a much larger discussion, and maybe we allow it citywide, up to our standards. So I'm.
Well, couldn't that be a discussion we have in our goal setting session?
Yes, but we have to address it tonight. It's in this, it's in this packet.
But I'm talking about the containers. Couldn't we address that in our goal setting session?
Yes, but as I understand it, the dilemma staff is asking for is if we're gonna go that way, we should do it now, because if we change it 90 days from now, it's a major amendment and has to go through the entire process again. Is that correct, Mr. Walker?
Well,
Just on this problem.
no, wait a second. If you want to update the construction standards throughout the entire city, then it wouldn't pertain solely to this property.
I think that's, I'm open to that discussion.
But that wouldn't be right now.
No, I mean, you could eliminate it now, and then if you want to allow
Right.
container construction as a,
Then it would fit into what we're talking about.
right.
So, yeah, so in order to expedite, we leave it off now.
I would say leave it off. I'm afraid that if we put it in, we've opened up something that we didn't intend.
But
I agree
if
with
we
you, Vice Mayor.
if we address it during the goal setting session, it can fit this particular parcel as well at that time. Correct?
Correct.
Right. We're protecting ourselves tonight. if
Not
we
exactly.
put it off.
No, because with a PD, if you're going to allow container development, then you need to put it in there now. If you have your uses and the standards now that you adopt, and later on you say, we're going to do container development, for this specific piece of property, you'd have to amend it to allow it.
I would
If we amended
rather.
the whole city style, like Vice Mayor's talking about? it would
Vice
apply to
Mayor?
this?
Yeah, just one second, Mr. Daniel's talking.
No, is that what we're?
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, if we did a citywide amendment or modification with the style of buildings, this would be exempt from that?
Because the PUD is its own zoning, it's a specific zoning.
Typically, what you would do is you would list in that type of a situation, you would list the specific zoning categories that allow the container development. So you might say it's allowed in the B1 through B6 and the I1 and I2 and CC1. But you can't, those wouldn't apply to planned developments, because planned developments are contractual, it's not contract zoning, I take that back. It's more of a negotiated process, and it's a zoning that you have specific things that are allowed and specific things that are not allowed. That's the idea behind it.
So this kind of fits in the category of its own then?
This
This
is zoning.
property does, yes.
Yes.
Here's my hesitation to include it, is I always try to think what's the worst thing that's gonna happen, because this is a beautiful picture, but let's just say we allow it and some guy goes over to the junkyard and picks up a couple containers that are all dented to heck, bolts them together, slaps them on there, and you've just allowed it. I
It
think
would
it's
have to be this one. It would have to look exactly the same.
I don't know that that's as good as, I think you could make it look better than that. That's my concern. I'm not in favor of containers tonight. That's how I feel.
I think we all feel that way.
Vice Mayor, I would rather come to an amendment for this later if necessary.
We're not trying to make your job harder, Marta. We're just, you got to understand it from our point of view.
Well, the whole beauty of the PUD is it's a negotiation, but if we allow this, we've just allowed a lot of our negotiation right out the door. We can't put it back in. We can always, we can always add it back in later. If this person is a legitimate buyer and he sees what we're doing and he comes forward and he says, I really want to do this, this is what I'm going to build, and he shows it to us, we can always change it. It's just, it's only time.
Yeah,
I know
no,
time is
I
money,
agree.
but it's only a 90-day delay if this person is real. So,
Completely agreed, Mr. Vice Mayor. And what I would also encourage too is maybe we talk to the buyer and tell him we would much rather prefer him to build a block building. So that's there too. But Mr. Mayor, there's a motion on the floor. Did we get a second?
We did. Commissioner Curry seconded your motion.
I think she only seconded it if I was going to amend my motion.
No,
No, I will second the motion as read.
Okay, so for clarity, since our city clerk is not here, the motion is to add mini warehouses as an allowed use and add convenience stores as a prohibited use. Correct? Correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Yes.
Correct,
And-
Curry?
And I'm correct on the second, yes.
Any further discussion about this?
So the elevated votes, all
Okay.
that stays. Okay.
Elevated stays.
Elevated stays.
Okay.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
Any opposed?
You didn't open it up to public comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't open it up for public comment. So, we're gonna null that vote, and I'm gonna open it up for public comment. Anyone in the audience like to discuss this matter? Seeing none.
Mere formality.
No, thank you, Joe. We'll close audience participation, and we will take a vote on the motion and the second before us. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to communications from our city manager.
Yes, I have some. I have to wait for my computer to come back up now. I emailed out to you earlier in the week an add-on to this agenda having to do with our landscape maintenance company. Give me one moment. Okay.
I received the email he was speaking about.
Yeah, so what had happened is, we had one company that we're not satisfied with their performance, and we've given them notice of termination, and we'd like to give the other company, which is a smaller company that did bid on this project when it was put out to bid, the opportunity to be able to do the work at a cost savings to the city of about $12,000. So there's already been a change order to that smaller company, and our purchasing policy doesn't allow me to exceed a certain percentage of the original contract. So this is not a budgetary item because it's actually saving money. It's a procedural item that I can't modify an existing contract without going to the commission. So what we're asking for the commission to do is to authorize the city manager to execute a change order to the existing contract with ABC Express Lawn in the amount of $43,740 in order to give them, swap the work from the first company to ABC. Everybody kind of...
Any questions for
Mr.
Joe?
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
no, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make that motion to make the change to ABC Express Lawn Care.
We have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Danio made a second. Anyone in the audience like to discuss this? Seeing none, we'll close audience participation. Any discussion needed amongst the commission? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Mr. Forte.
In your agenda packet on the millage item, there is an attachment, and on number 16 of that attachment, it states the current year rollback rate. As we discussed, it's 5.9014. However, in the attachment on the agenda, it says 9.040. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. What I verbalized is correct, but one of the attachments, the DR 420 form, had a typo in it. So I'm going to swap those documents out and just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you.
And I believe that is all that I have.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we'll open it up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I did want to say thank you, Joe, for that landscaping contract. I should have done it in the discussion, but I had my phone on mute. It's a good cost saving to our citizens, and hopefully will upset the aesthetics there. So I wanted to begin tonight. First off, thank you very much, Vice Mayor, for running another great meeting. I know it's tough with us being virtual, and I wanted to commend you on your prayer tonight because rightfully so, you talked about a very dedicated individual, Mr. Dave Manning, who put in a lot of his heart and soul into this city, and we all knew him. And you know, the one thing that I take away from my time of knowing him is whenever he spoke up, he wanted to listen because it was always so profound. And you know, he knew how to keep quiet, but when he spoke up, you knew to listen. He was a great man, and my heart and prayers go out to his family. And so I just wanted to make sure that was said tonight. Additionally, as I stated earlier, that I am home positive with COVID-19, although we have completely gotten over all of our symptoms and feel extremely healthy, and doctor says that I'm allowed to be out and about again. I am going to continue self-isolating until either my next test comes in negative or August 2nd, whichever one comes first. So I just wanted to make that clear. And in addition to that, as many of you know or may have seen in the media, we had to wait 17 days for our test results to come in, which is absolutely unacceptable on every level, and it's unacceptable for any family and any individual in Volusia County, let alone our city. And, you know, going through this and not knowing whether or not we were positive or negative, we went ahead, we're on day 21 of self-isolating, my family and I, and it's been tough. And I know that it's tough for a lot of families out there, especially when they don't have the information of whether or not they're positive or negative. It is unacceptable. In very short terms, because it's more complex than this, the ball wasn't necessarily dropped by the state. The ball was dropped by the laboratories that were extremely greedy and absolutely inundating themselves with all of the tests and allowing them to come in, because really, essentially, they get paid the same amount of money whether they process these tests in 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 years. So to them, every time that came in, their register went cha-ching, cha-ching. And I believe that it was unethical for them to accept way past their means to be able to get these produced in 48 to 72 hours. Due to this frustration and due to many people calling me and sharing the same frustration of waiting 2 weeks, 10 days, 14 days, 19 days for these results to come in, I helped pen a letter with the other 15 mayors and the county chairman to Governor DeSantis to implore him to bring expedited symptomatic lanes here to Volusia County. I wanted to make sure to bring that up today to my commission because I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have seen that letter and have seen me in the media talking about that. I wanted to be clear to you all that this was nothing where I wanted to leave anyone out, but this was something that was very time sensitive, and we didn't have a meeting prior to writing that letter to be able to ask you all for your support. I did sign the letter just as an individual, Chris Villa, with my title, but you know, at the same time, I knew that this was something that everyone could get behind. There's no disagreement, although there's disagreement on this entire thing, from masks to numbers and all of these. There's no disagreement that testing is important, no matter what. And even more important, when you test, you must receive those results back within 48 to 72 hours to make that information useful to families to decide whether they need to isolate themselves for an extended amount of time or whether they can go back into work and be along with society. So I did do that, and I have some good news from all of this. And although my news personally isn't good because it was positive and because I had to wait 17 days, the good news of it is that I have been in talks with the governor's office multiple times this week, and they are not only working so hard to fix this and to get this back on schedule, but it does look right now they're in logistics talks of bringing this expedited lane to Volusia County for people who are experiencing symptoms and guaranteeing that they will get these results back within 48 hours. And this is such a huge win for Volusia County because there's only 4 counties that they're doing this in, and they're the biggest counties, Miami-Dade, Broward, Jacksonville or Duval, and Orange County. So we will be the 5th one to get this, and right now I'm extremely optimistic that this is going to come through, and this could come through maybe as soon as the end of this week. So I just wanted to explain the whole process to everyone and be transparent about that. But I hope that, I do have the support of you all on this commission for this goal and this movement that all the mayors signed on to try to step up and speak up for all of the residents here in Volusia County, not just our city, but everyone here. And it was historic. You never see 16 mayors come together on anything, especially because we all have different beliefs and different political parties. And so it was pretty incredible that everyone came to the table within 24 hours to sign this letter. So I just wanted to touch on that. And the other thing I wanted to say tonight was the paving of Flomish is, I just got word back from Joe Forte that it'll be August 8th, which is just amazing. And I know I mentioned that last time, but man, this has been a long time coming, and it's great to see that vision come to life of this commission. So I thank you for that. And the last thing I have in here is a reminder that all voting precincts have now been changed to all vote at Sika Hall here in Holly Hill. As I understand it, UBIC has opted out of this election, and so typically we have mainly the people that are in District 4 here in our city. They normally vote there on Flomish at UBIC, but now everyone's going to go to Sika Hall. So Mr. Forte, I believe, is getting the word out, and Valerie is getting the word out through our Facebook and through several other means to make sure that voters know and that they don't show up maybe at the last minute at UBIC and realize that they got to go to Sika Hall. So anyone that you know that lives in District 4, make sure to spread that word to them as well. And the very last thing is we have to continue to push the census responses. We need a great response from our citizens. So anyone you talk to, make sure that you tell them to fill out their census so we can be counted and we can get possible more funding and more grants in the future for the next 10 years. Very important. So thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Great job running a difficult meeting tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Curry.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and thanks for running a meeting with confused commissioner on the line. I just wanted to reach out to Valerie if she's listening, and I've told her several times, but I wanted to again give my sympathy to her and their children and the rest of their family. Dave Manning was not just a very good city worker. He was a wonderful person. I know him and my husband Forrest would often joke with each other, and we both agreed Dave always had a smile for you, and he is truly, truly going to be missed. I just wanted to echo the mayor's sentiments on this COVID testing. It hit home personally for me as well. My husband arrested somebody that was asymptomatic but tested positive, received a response back within a day. That's when my husband was notified that he had arrested this person, and he was to be put in quarantine and tested. But his test, as a first responder, was taken and sent to a lab in California. Took 10 days to get back to give a negative result of the test. But it's just ridiculous that someone that he arrested received results back within 24 hours, and the first responder had to wait 10 days and have a test sent clear across the United States. So we definitely need to get a little bit of help from the state on this COVID testing issue, and I appreciate the mayor taking the steps to go ahead and get everyone in the county on board and send that letter, and I do appreciate and support that, Mayor.
Commissioner Curry, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I will make sure that story makes its way back to the governor's office when I talk to them tomorrow, because you're exactly right. It's unacceptable for any first responders. And we know of another first responder that waited, I think it was 14 days to be able to get his results back, a firefighter, and absolutely unacceptable. The people that are on the front line, they need to go to the front of the line when it comes to testing. So I agree with you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, and thank you for all you're doing. And Vice Mayor and the rest of the commission, thank you for putting up with me with this way of communicating tonight. And I have nothing else. I hope everybody has a good night and stay safe.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
I don't have a lot to say tonight, but I do remember going to Dave's ceremony at the church the other day, and I got thinking about some things about Dave. He was really a good friend of all of our family, and I remember, one thing I remember very well about him, he's about as much of a 100% Christian as you could get, you know. I mean, he was a total Christian from the word go. And I remember when we had my daughter's wedding, he was there with Val, and they had every kind of food you could mention, and I had no clue what 99% of it was at all. And Dave was in the line, going through the line in front of me, and I said, Dave, why the crap are you eating this food? You don't even know what it is. He said, well, it's been blessed, so who cares? That's what Dave said, because I blessed the food before the ceremony. So, and I have a lot of sympathy for people that has to deal with this COVID thing, and it's a horrible thing, but you don't know how much of it is profit, how much of it is political, how much of it is some people don't give a crap, you know what I mean, what you're doing. And some people are just working as their job, and they just get by, and it's going to get better, but I think a lot of people in a learning curve on it seems like, you know. But and the city is still doing great. I think we're moving ahead, and property values will come up, and everything will improve with Holly Hill, but it'll take time. Thanks for everything, guys.
Thank you. Commissioner Danio.
I regret that I didn't get to go to the Manning celebration. I was out of town celebrating my own as my son got married, but I did email Val and kind of talk to her that way. But I wanted to throw out a congratulations to Junker. We kind of forgot him on the closing talks. 35 years. That's a long time to be putting in the city. I tell you, you need to buy him a Sicilian pizza, man. It's a go-away gift.
I think you should buy me a Sicilian.
Yeah. Other than that, I noticed the pickleball is doing well, and I've even had some people telling me that we got to work on some traffic designs eventually if we don't figure out with the US 1. That would be cheap. Yeah. So, but it's all yours.
Okay. We mentioned Pictona, and it's up and running. The kitchen opened, I think, a week and a half ago. Working out some of the bugs over there, but I've been over there several times. It's a flurry of activity. It's amazing how many people are over there at 7:30 in the morning. And Mr. Forte and I went over there about 4:30 this afternoon, and just looked around and go, and it wasn't that busy, but there was probably
Maybe it's at 4:30.
there were 50 people there. And Joe said, when do you think the last time 50 people were enjoying this park? At 4:30 on a Tuesday
Or any
afternoon.
30.
Yeah, anytime.
Right.
It's just refreshing to see the life put back into that property and into our city. So it's very encouraging. And Joe, I don't know if you can comment on this, but Stella kind of let something out of the bag that I heard her say. CRA coordinator. You said
We
made an offer.
Yeah, we
Can you talk
interviewed.
about it or not talk about it?
Oh, no, I can talk about it. I just won't disclose the name because the person hasn't formally accepted the job pending a background investigation. But we did conduct several interviews, both over the phone and in person. And it was me and Brian and Diane that conducted the interviews, and we selected one person, made him an offer. He's going through the background process, and when he notifies his employer, we'll make it public.
Okay, all right, thanks. Sorry, Stella. She gave. I saw your face. I saw your face cringe through the mask. I was like,
No, we think it's professional for them to first notify their employer before they hear it.
No, that's why I didn't want you to disclose anything. I just didn't know how far along we were in the process. So.
It probably won't start until 1st of September.
Okay. All right. So, anyone have anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, we will adjourn this meeting. 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 Adjourn this meeting.